Hi everyone, I do hope you're keeping well. Welcome to podcast number two here with dentaljobs.co.uk. I'm delighted to have Geoff Purnell join us from Clyde Munro Dental Group in Scotland. Geoff is going to be going through with us today everything regarding dentistry and all of his experience. Geoff, firstly, thanks so much for coming onto the show and being our second podcast. How are you doing? How are things with yourself?
Hi, Lewis. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, good, thanks. Good. Just up in a bit of a rainy Orkney today, but yeah, we do have our nice days up here as well.
So I suppose the question I'd love to ask, when do you get sort of blue skies and good weather? Is it seasons or is it just a mixture of?
Oh, it's a mixture. I think Orkney's known for having 4 seasons in one day here, so it can be rainy in the morning and we can have a beautiful evening, and vice versa.
No worries. No, I mean I'm sure we're gonna touch on the archipelago shortly of the islands there. But okay. So firstly, Geoff, you're an associate dentist with Clyde Munro. I suppose was your passion always to have a career in dentistry? I mean, how did you get involved with becoming a dentist? What was your career path to date?
So yeah, it was quite an interesting one. So I grew up in Orkney, did my primary school and secondary education in Orkney, and it was about fifth year I realised I had reasonable grades, and I was looking into the options that I had there. And I was always interested in healthcare, so I was looking at either medicine, dentistry, or optometry at that stage. And I think I was pushed towards dentistry because it was more hands-on, and it seemed like something that's kind of something different every day. So yeah, I ended up applying for dentistry, and I went to Dundee University,
Okay.
and that was 2001. I started my journey there. Dundee University was great. It was a really, really good undergrad education. I came out of that and I actually moved straight back to Orkney because I missed it that much. So I came back to Orkney and did my VT training up here, which was a fantastic experience. It was actually part of the public dental service at that time, but it was great. And during my time up here doing my VT, there was study days. So you were off the island at least once a month, usually down to study days, meeting with a group of dentists. And yeah, it was a fantastic scheme. After my VT, I decided to stay on up in Orkney for a year in the public dental service. But then after that experience, I fancied getting into the general dental service, which is the career pathway most dentists go down. So I looked at my options. I ended up moving down to Stirling, where I worked in an established practice for a couple of years, and then just happened by chance that one of my friends was setting up a brand new practice in the centre of Glasgow, and he asked me to come aboard there. So I spent the next 7 years building up a new practice in Glasgow. So it was a complete shift from Orkney to one of the biggest cities in Scotland. I never actually thought myself as a city person. I don't think I'd be living in a city at any point in my life, but I actually really enjoyed it and learned a lot. During that time as well, I met my wife now, and we've got two daughters, and the family grew up, and that's kind of why I ended up moving back to Orkney. So we're looking for a lifestyle shift at that stage. So 2 young children, and we're looking for the best kind of education for them. The schools up in Orkney are renowned for being great. They're quite small. The quality of education here is really good. So we decided to move back up in 2019, and that's when I became part of the Clyde Munro Group.
Fantastic. So some of the viewers who will know of Glasgow, Aberdeen, those major cities. Orkney, people won't really be aware of where Orkney, where it exists. But I mean, to tell the viewers, I mean, what's it like?
So Orkney's it's a small group of islands right at the north of Scotland. When you say that, it sounds isolated, but we're really not. We've got 3 or 4 flights a day that can get you down to Glasgow or Edinburgh within an hour, Aberdeen as well. So you're connected. You're not isolated at all. But it is a different way of life. You are on an island. You can't go for too long a drive. You drive for 30 miles and then you reach the end of the island, of course. But yeah, it's certainly not isolated. In terms of things to see and do. It's very similar to the rest of Scotland, to be honest. You're not really missing out on much up here.
It sounds to me a bit like Orkney's like the Maldives, isn't it? You know, it's
It has been compared to the Maldives, yeah.
but perhaps maybe not the nice hot weather, but certainly sounds like I've seen some of the pictures and videos that have been shared recently. It absolutely looks glorious and a brilliant place to live. And you just mentioned one of the key things, which obviously is quite family orientated, and the schools are great. Which is awesome. But you must love it because you've moved back there so many times.
Absolutely, yeah. There's just something about Orkney. It is different. There's a real sense of community here. People do genuinely want to help each other out. So you're never kind of stuck for anything. If you've got anything, then there's always somebody that will help you with it. Also, just things like in the summer as well. It's certainly the sea's never warm, but you can go swimming in the sea. You've got clean beaches, clear water. There is something quite magical about it in the summer.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'll be honest, Geoff, you're kind of selling it to me to move to Orkney with my family. I've got a young daughter, 3, so I know the position you're in with a young family. It's an interesting one. So tell me your experience with Clyde Munro, and perhaps maybe mentioning sort of the development, since you started. I mean, it clearly, with your experience to hand, you've helped set up and move the dental practice forward by the sound of things. But how has your experience been to date with Clyde Munro, and how have they helped your career move forward since joining?
Yeah, so I moved back to Orkney 2019, like I was saying, and 2 months after, that's when Clyde Munro took over the practice. Mm-hmm. And the experience has been positive. When I moved up, there was an established group of clinicians that had worked together with each other for a while, and there was a VT on as well. So I felt like I was moving into a practice that's quite well established, and I felt it would be quite difficult to implement new things that I'd learned in Glasgow into this practice. But when Clyde Munro took over, that was the ideal timing, and they've been great. So, for example, when I was in Glasgow, I got a lot of experience with digital scanners, with Invisalign, with things like that. And I mentioned this to Clyde, and they brought in the equipment. Anything I needed was there, and they gave me the time to teach it to the other associates as well, who were all great on taking this on board and learning, being open to learning these new techniques. So that's been great. They also, when I said I did Invisalign, they put me on training for something called SureSmile as well, which is an alternative to Invisalign, very similar, but it's another option for the patients, which is always a good thing. They've also just simple things like air abrasion units. So that's not something that Orkney was using at the time. So this is for removing staining off teeth. It's a really simple, painless, really popular treatment that was very popular in Glasgow, and they were quite happy to bring in the equipment for that as well. So it's been really positive from my side.
How has dentistry changed in recent years? I mean, you just touched on there around sort of the digital aspect of dentistry with the machines and all those things that are now in place. And obviously, when you started off, kind of early 2000s, I mean, you must have seen kind of a shift in technology.
Absolutely, yeah. So digital scanners was something we'd heard about at undergraduate level, but we'd never actually seen them or didn't really know too much about them. But that's probably one of the biggest things I would say in terms of innovation and how things are progressing is scanners. And they're great because they're much more accurate, I find, than impressions. It saves a lot of time on the patients, more comfortable for the patients. The big thing as well is we're hoping they're going to be a lot more sustainable as well. So we're not having to use all these materials on the patients, having to send things away and get things back, models and all these different things that go into just making a simple restoration at the end of the day. So yeah, I would say scanners are the big thing that I've seen coming forward. And also the use of therapists as well. Therapists was something that we were kind of becoming, I mean, they'd always been there, but it was becoming a more kind of new thing. And now I find that for most of my treatment, I involve the therapist as well, or the hygienist, and get them involved in the treatment just to give the patient the best experience, really.
Absolutely. And just on that, I think, for some of the viewers on this podcast, some will be already, in dentistry, and some will be, considering a career in dentistry. what is what is the career path? Becoming a fully fledged dentist. How do you set out and how do you start to begin that path or journey? What are your personal opinions on that?
So I think it goes right back to, in Scotland, you have your standard grades, or that's what we had. I think it's still the same now. And you really need to be kind of thinking about it at that stage, because you need a certain number of hires and they have to be the right subjects. So the first thing I say is, if you are considering dentistry, look into it fairly early on and make sure you're going down the correct subjects at that stage. Also try and get some experience if you can as well. Just ask around your local dental practices, see if you can go in and watch for a day and get some experience, because dentistry is a great career, but it isn't for everybody either. And you'll kind of know when you're in there and watching what's happening, whether it is for you or not, quite quickly. So yeah, I'd certainly recommend that. And then when you do get to the stage where you're applying for universities, I wouldn't try and limit yourself on one university. You're best to, because it's very, very competitive. So the more universities you can apply for, the better. So give yourself kind of flexibility to move around to different universities. Also try and get something that kind of stands out for you if you get an interview, to try and get the interviewers to remember you. So do some research into dentistry, look at a specific subject and bring it up at the interview, and that will stand you in good stead.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's some good points there. I mean, you mentioned universities a moment ago. What universities would you, for the viewers listening, would you ask them to consider or at least look into?
Well, certainly in Scotland, I went to Dundee and it was fantastic. But I've also had experience in the Glasgow building as well, and all the equipment there is really good as well. And the teachers are great. The professors and the dentists in there that teach you are really good. So certainly look at the two Scottish universities. I am a bit biased there, obviously, up in Scotland, but Glasgow and Dundee.
No,
there's also Newcastle, which is slightly further south as well. During your time at one of these universities, you'll find that the three universities do meet up for field days and things like that. So you do get to know the other universities as well. And Newcastle were always a great bunch of people as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so something that we especially us in dental jobs, we see too often, many candidates, especially considering coming to practice in the UK, they look at locations such as London, Manchester. You've mentioned Newcastle, Birmingham, and sometimes Scotland isn't always on the map. What would you say the true benefits of practicing in Scotland is? From a social aspect, from a professional standpoint. What advice would you give the viewers?
I think from a professional side of things, I think the Scottish dental system is very different from the English dental system, and they've both got their pros and cons to them. But I do think that the Scottish dental system is a superior service you're getting. So it's something called an item per fee. So the patient pays for what they get done, basically. So if you have 2 fillings, you'll pay for 2 fillings. If you have 1 filling, you'll pay for 1 filling. Whereas the English system is set up in tiers. So there's three different bands, and it's grouped into different treatment. So I think the Scottish dental system is the better system. It is also being revised at this moment as well. So we should, by the end of the year, have an excellent NHS dental system. This is all dependent on the Scottish government, but it looks like they're going in the right direction now. So we're hoping that'll be in place. The other things up in Scotland, you've got Clyde Munro, really good support for the dentist. You feel like you're part of a big team, so you can lean on other dentists, and you've always got a dentist on hand to speak to. In Scotland itself, it's a beautiful country. It's England's. I grew up in England actually when I was very small. England's quite a flat country, whereas Scotland has the mountains and space and yeah, the people are really friendly up in Scotland. No matter which city you go to, you'll find that everybody's friendly up here. We've also got incentives that the Scottish government gives. So if you're looking to work in a remote or rural place like the islands, for example, you do get incentives as well to work up here. So you get a distance allowance, which helps with travel costs for coming on and off and on. And like I was saying before, we've got travel networks between the islands, but also the mainland of Scotland. We've got international airports, so you can travel across the world from here. You don't have to first travel south to England to travel to different countries. Also, we've got fantastic rail networks as well. So if you do have family or friends down in London or England, you can travel from Edinburgh to London in a matter of a few hours now. So it's certainly not a remote place to work.
No, I mean that's the key things really is trying to let the viewers know that Scotland is a fantastic place to work. And for us really, I think we want to be able to promote Scotland as a great location. Dentistry obviously is key for us as well. So what advice would you give sort of anyone wishing to enter the dental profession, who's never had any experience before? What advice would you be looking to give people, just to kind of recap?
So I think if you're entering the dental profession, some advice first for a new dentist, I would say gain as much knowledge from the colleagues around you as possible. So when you go into practice, there'll be dentists that are more experienced than you, and do learn from them, interact with them, make sure you're not going into your own surgery, spending the day in there by yourself and coming out and hoping you've learnt the right things. Definitely lean on your colleagues and learn as much as you can, because dentists in general do want to share their knowledge. We're friendly folk, we're intelligent folk, we know how to share knowledge and teach and things. For myself, I would say that it wasn't until really 3, 4, 5 years into practice before I actually became reasonably confident in just the simple things like filling. So you'll find in university, you'll learn how to drill a cavity and how to do a filling. But when you get out into the real world, you'll realize every single filling is different from the last one. There's nothing that can be reproduced over and over again. So every filling you're learning from. So I would say it wasn't until 3 to 5 years before I became really confident. I would say try and get as much postgrad experience as you can. So look for courses that you're interested in. So things like, for example, if you're interested in root canal treatment, do more courses in root canal treatment. But also if you find that you're struggling with just the basics, fillings, for example, look for those courses as well and try and give yourself a kind of broad knowledge of everything before you decide to go down kind of one pathway into speciality, if that's what you choose.
Where could someone go and kind of research courses from your perspective? Somebody new coming in, is there a centralized point to be able to sign up to these courses, Geoff? I mean, what are your views?
So in Scotland, we've got this great thing called NES, which is the NHS Education Scotland, and they've got a portal, so you can go on and they've got a full list of courses on all the different subjects to teach. Some are face-to-face, some are virtual now as well, post-COVID. So that's a great resource. You've also got things like, for example, this Dentinal Tubules, which is a CPD-focused website, and you can go in there and they've got courses you can download as well. On top of that, with Clyde Munro, actually, we've got a Facebook page now called Clyde Munro Careers, and that's quite a good place to log into, also to see kind of job opportunities, but they'll also say about career days coming up, so you can go along to those to look at different things. Clyde Munro have also recently set up a base in Perth for postgraduate teaching as well, which is really good. So they'll have things advertised there now and again for dentists to pop along to. Social media as well is always a great place. So there's the Scottish Dental Network on Facebook, which have courses advertised now and again as well. So there's plenty of places to look for postgraduate courses.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, lots and lots of information there, and we'll build that in as well to make sure the viewers can link and go to various different sites. So I really appreciate that. Geoff, what is it that you love, about being a dentist? Because you mentioned at the beginning of the show that every day is different, no day is the same. What is it you get out of bed for and strive? What is it you really enjoy?
I think I really enjoy the patient-to-patient interactions. I think that's something that's taken me a long time to develop. It's not something you just come out of university and you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Some people are, which is great, but for myself, it's taken me time to develop. But I've realized that is the thing that I enjoy the most is going in and seeing the patients, having a chat with them, getting to know them, and just seeing what I can do for them basically, and seeing them leave with a smile on their face is the best thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And lastly, it wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't ask this question to you. But what do you love about Clyde Munro?
Clyde Munro, I think feeling part of a group. So the practice I was in before was an independent practice, a bit daunting to begin with, but then you realise you've got all these dentists in the same group as you, and you're all part of the same thing, which is fantastic. It means like things like if you're looking to make environmental changes, for example, that's something I'm quite interested in, is sustainability. You've got this huge resource of dentists and practices that you can use to help make a difference that way. So that's great. You don't feel like you're alone in surgery, and there's no kind of pressure on yourself really, because you've got people to rely on around you as well. So you don't feel as stressed as you sometimes might do.
I think that's really incredible to hear, because having an organisation where you feel comfortable enough to be able to raise your hand and ask questions, and you've mentioned many times on the show that you're able to lean on colleagues and absorb information and help and support, I think is really, really incredible. And I think that's kind of the culture that Clyde Munro have been able to put together. And it's evident from how you've sort of shared your experiences today, which is fantastic. And Geoff, I've really enjoyed the time with you on the show today. It's been good. It's been really informative, and I really thank you again. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything for any listeners at all?
I think we've covered everything really. I have to do a quick David Attenborough moment for up in Orkney really, because I've not mentioned killer whales and the wildlife up here. But just recently, I think it was just the other week actually, we were out for a walk along the beach, and we were lucky enough to see a pod of killer whales coming past us, which was amazing. And not to brag, but just a couple of weeks before that as well, I woke up in the night to let the dogs out, and the whole sky was lit up with the northern lights. It's beautiful. Can't describe it.
Something that we don't get down here in the southeast of England. So again, I've never actually visited Scotland at all, and I think from my first podcast with Nicola, from there I sort of went home and said to the family, we've got to get a holiday into Scotland soon. But from what you've just said there, I think it's going to be sooner than later. I think we'll get up there. But listen, Geoff, it's been fantastic to have you with us today, and thanks so much for sharing all your experiences, and also indeed in terms of advice for people looking to start a career in dentistry. It's been really informative, and I really appreciate you having on the show, and I hopefully look forward to welcoming you back again soon.
Thanks for having me, Lewis. It's been great. Thank you.